It's March 2020 and social distancing is what we do to stay safe. It's the smart move right now, but it's been devastating to many industries. When it's your job to work with crowds, what can you do when the crowds themselves are the problem? Step back and consider this. The job is to communicate messages, to educate, inspire, and transform. The job is to put on a show, and that is still possible even when everyone's stuck at home. The message, the work, the show must go on. Can the same skills that made events amazing translate to an online medium? Atmosphere Lighting and Glass River Media think so. And that's why we're introducing the Televent.
So welcome everyone. So this is the Glass River Media Fabrication Events and Atmosphere Lighting Televent. We wanted an opportunity with these being somewhat scary times and somewhat interesting, and everyone having to kind of pivot their workday, their workforce, and how they're working in general. A lot of things are changing very quickly. Things are, events are canceling, and people are having to change the way they work. And we wanted to address and talk about how we can do other things. So we put together this Televent to show what our other options were. So Eric, you're with Atmosphere Lighting. Talk to us a little bit about the lighting and what we've done here today.
So what we've done here today is we've transformed Glass River Media's studio space with lighting. And it can do a number of different things, but the point of it is that we're creating a design and we're doing it intentionally. Over the course of today, you're going to see a couple of different looks, and that is part of what we're trying to talk about, is creating a design as a part of an event that may have a remote component to it.
That makes a lot of sense. And so fabrication events, explain a little bit what we've done here as well.
Okay. What we've done here is taken the warehouse area and roll up doors behind us and everywhere else and wrapped it in drape in order to create an event space in a spot where there's not an event space. And we brought in some lounge furniture and basically turned an area that could be anywhere into an event space and a viable meeting space. And with everything going on now, you can do this not have to go out into other areas, so you can bring the event space to you.
Now, and from a media perspective, I want to just point out, just kind of at the top, is that from a big event perspective, often we would need dozens of people, everything from the lighting team, and we have less than 10 people here today, including crew, everything. There's less than 10 people. It's a very small gathering. This could be a boardroom. This could be a back room. This could be, is there any limitation? This is for both of you. Is there any limitation for the space we would need to do an event?
I mean, hypothetically, we could go as small as doing it in a good-sized walk-in closet, I suppose.
That would be interesting. That leads me to a question. What would be the weirdest area you have lit for an event?
I'll have to think about that one for a second. You got anything, Paul?
We've done bathrooms in a number of places where...
You put drape up in a bathroom?
We put drape up in bathrooms where they felt for their event that it looked a little too cheesy or junky, and we went in and covered up everything that we could and made it feel a little bit more elegant so that the guests that were there felt like they were at an event space. We do it in schools quite often.
That makes sense.
If they have school fundraisers in a gymnasium, we'll go in and dress up the restroom so they feel like they're at a hotel or someplace nice.
That sort of reminds me when I was in college, we had a lobby outside of a bathroom that would frequently get acquired as a rehearsal space that was sort of euphemistically referred to as the bathroom theater.
Yeah, I remember that.
I guess we've always had, at least in my section of the industry, an idea that any space can be a space for performance.
Right. I mean, space is just that. It's space. It's the open place that you could be. We could do we could do a town hall meeting in the foyer of your office lobby if we needed to.
Yeah.
So, awesome. So I'm trying to think of, other fun industry stories. The event world, I think all of us have been in the event world in something. Eric and I have worked in theater since high school.
Yeah.
I don't know your background as much. I assume long history of events and
I started in high school working in the theater, and one day a gentleman walked in and we had won a bunch of awards for set construction and said, I heard you guys are good with your hands. Who wants to make some money working for cash? And
Who says no to
yes.
that question? It's a good question.
That was when I was 15 and started doing it then, and loved it and kind of stuck with it.
Nice. No, there's something really transformative about theater. How an event space where you can take a stage, you can take I know you work in the museums and the Hazy, and you take this space that is always very sophisticated, whether it's the elephant at American Natural History or the orbiter at the Hazy Center, and you with lights completely transform it into a very different atmosphere. No
Yes.
pun, no pun intended. I swear that was an accident.
Well, yeah, and part of it is really listening to the clients. What do we want to do with this space? What message are we sending? What visually do we want it to look like? Do we want that to change over the course of the evening? So it's very client driven. As the experts, we have the things, the technology, the manpower, but I try not to get too wrapped up in that. I like to start conceptually. What do you want this event to be? What do you want it to look like? And then we work from there, and that allows us to go into a lot of spaces and do really interesting things with them.
What would you say? I mean, I know you do a lot of event like parties and galas of that nature. What would you say is the most, not most interesting, I already asked that one, but the most transformative? Like, we took an outhouse and made it into a...
Well, we did, the company I was working with about 15 years ago, we took a barn out in Middleburg, and working with a team, we created a wedding space out of it. And by wedding space, there was a Broadway touring scenic company that came in and built essentially a church inside of this horse barn. And it was an incredible wedding. I think that was probably the most transformative thing I've ever seen.
That's amazing. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
How about you? Interesting things that you have. You talked a little about schools and.
On a regular basis, we'll go into warehouses or just large empty spaces, and then just create the room with drape, box it into the size that we want, and then we can come in and carpet it, hang stuff from the ceiling, do chandeliers, and just create whatever environment we want to out of a big empty space. Like Eric was saying, a lot of it is finding out what the client wants to focus on. We can use drape and lighting to make anything that we don't want to see disappear. And whether it's hiding it with drape or dimming the lights in the areas that we don't want to focus, and then create focal points out of whatever we do want to see. If you dim the lights everywhere else and turn them up on one area, that's where everybody's looking. If we come in with drape and you have something white, like let's say a wedding dress that you want everybody to see, if you put a black background behind it, it sticks out. It's the only thing you see. If they're in front of a lot of other busy items, it camouflages and it's not quite as visible. So we take that vision that they want and we create it by hiding everything else.
There's a lot of smoke and mirrors to that. That's awesome. So tell me, I know that the chairs are yours, the drape. What all does fabrication do? You guys, fabrication. You'll make anything.
Yeah, the major focus of what we do is drape, fabric, ceiling treatments, and decor. We'll do dance floors, stages. We'll help build the stage set, and then bring in furniture, custom furniture and bars if you're looking for something more than just your standard Chiavari chair, the basic rental chairs. We'll come in and bring that and try and create whatever environment you're looking for.
That's really cool. So now to Atmosphere, I have been on Atmosphere jobs which were, this all the way up to, is there a limit to what Atmosphere, you guys I've seen do everything.
I mean, I guess hypothetically there's a limit, but I haven't found it yet. There are several spaces we work. They're large spaces, large scale events. We're very frequently in the National Building Museum shows with, in excess of 100 moving light fixtures. We do concerts. We do everything from a very, very simple setup in a studio all the way up to A-level, national level events. It's really a broad range. Where's the limit? I don't know.
Nice. I like that. Good answer. So it's gonna pretend that didn't happen. So, at Glass River Media, I like to say that we're strategic storytellers, and the things that I love about events is that they are almost the purest form of storytelling for me. It's experiential storytelling. I have been on an event with you where you walked into the Hazy and everything was pinks and blues, and it felt very different. And then the next time it was orange and yellow, and maybe not together. They're these experiential stories and the messaging of these events. Tell me a little bit about events for you and the importance of events and the atmosphere of events. I've got to stop using that word.
You can keep using it, I'm not concerned.
Did that. No, building that story, because I know that you and I have talked a lot about this, about how, you said it just a minute ago, it's not about the technical, it's not about the glitz and the glamour, it's about building that story. And talk to me a little bit about how you do that.
Well, a lot of it is driven, how do I put it? Can you ask the question again?
How do you build the story?
How do I build the story? Well, the first thing is to find out what the story is.
Okay, I like that.
And that's asking strategic questions of the various stakeholders. And sometimes there are multiple stakeholders involved. So, what is the magic of event? We love coming together and interacting with one another.
Sure.
We love seeing something new and different. And most events have a message. Maybe it's a wedding where the message is we're celebrating a union. Maybe it's a corporate event. The message is our corporation is pivoting to this, or we're recognizing the people that have done great work in our corporation. Every event is different. But the first step is finding out, what is this event about to the people that are holding it, and then starting a design from there. And that's where the magic comes in. That it is for them, not just, Hazy, page 17. Yeah, we're going with that one today.
Right.
We find the right design for them.
Ever do the same event twice?
Yes.
Give me an example of that.
Without being too specific,
Sure.
I've had a situation where, we were in the same space for multiple days, but with separate clients, and we had a lot of logistics considerations about that space, and ultimately we pitched the same idea to two separate clients who went for it.
That's convenient.
Now, to them, there was no crossover between the two. So the only people that knew were, us.
The crew, yeah.
But we've done that. Also, there are certain circumstances where a corporation may break an event into multiple pieces. So we're recognizing this half of the company that has done a great job and that half of the company has done a great job, and we can't get them both in the same night. So sometimes we duplicate the event just so that everybody has the same experience because they're awesome.
Now, can you do that? Could you potentially do, if you needed to, and I think you've done this actually, can you tie an event, disparate events together where two halves of the same event in different spaces that you have to have a connective tissue between them?
Oh, we absolutely could. And a lot of it is, again, looking at the design fundamentals. So we can be, we've actually done events where we were in multiple spaces simultaneously this past summer, actually, several Smithsonian properties. And a lot of it was, how do we have unique experiences that are still within the same branding of this company, but in different spaces? And we accomplish that through use of similar colors or textures, but also doing things with a lighting perspective to emphasize the uniqueness of every space.
I like that. That's cool. So, Paul, kind of the same general question of using the decor and the feeling to connect people and events and tell that story.
Yeah, a lot of times we found, when you spoke about doing the same event twice, there's a lot of clients that are very visual and trying to figure out what they want. And oftentimes they'll look either on the internet or through our photo catalog and just look at every event they can find, and they just say, I want that. And you say, do you want it? Do you want any options? And they say, nope,
No, I want that right there.
Perfect.
That's perfect. Yeah.
So for a lot of people, being able to pick out events that have already been done helps them wrap their mind around it and know exactly what they're getting. So we have a lot of clients that want the exact same thing, because when they're getting it, they know that there's no curveballs that are going to be coming at them down the line. And when also, you guys were talking about events where you're doing what the client asks. We had a bat mitzvah that we did about 15 years ago that was powder pink walls,
Sure.
powder pink ceiling, powder pink tablecloths. Everything in the entire room was a powder pink, like a Pepto-Bismol color. And all the lights were as well. And when you looked at someone's face, they looked like they were sick. And we sat there and like, this is what they want.
Okay.
And the girl hadn't come in yet, and we all went up to the client and said, "Are you sure this is what you want?" She said, "Hold on, give me just a second." She called her daughter. Her daughter came running in, screamed, gave us all hugs, and said, "This is the best thing I've ever seen," and ran off with her friends, screaming and yelling. And the mother said, "I know it looks horrible, but she's happy, and this event's for her." And so oftentimes I tell our new employees, it's not what we think, it's not what we want, it's what the client wants. And no matter what that image is, whether you agree with it or not, we're here for them, and we're here to make them happy. So we were telling her story of pink is everything, and it made her happy, and that's all that really mattered.
I can't say that I've seen anything quite that monochromatic. Like, I'm surprised you have drape in that color. That's
we have every color you can imagine, just about.
Apparently. So actually, I want to take a minute to talk about. So we've talked about the drape and the decor, and what that can do with the decor elements and the lighting and how we can use that to paint it. I want to talk a little bit about the media of itself. Now, we all know the internet. We're watching this on the internet. We've all been very associated with social media and other ways of connecting for many, many years. We're all on multiple different forums and channels, but we'll talk a little bit about the technical of Glass River Media and how we can tell stories over the internet and using social media, whether it's Zoom or GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, YouTube, which is where we're doing this today, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live. They all have set tricks, but there's a very simple tool set for that. And I actually want to introduce my colleague, Jeff, who is the technical director, that he's directing this from behind the scenes. He's going to take the camera back there and kind of show you guys a little bit. And before, we're going to be taking questions live here in a minute, but before we do, I want to, and he'll explain this as well, everything you're about to see is in our Go Kit. We can build what you're about to see anywhere, but I'm going to let him explain that a little bit better. Jeff?
Hey, Kirk, can you hear me?
I can.
So we are currently in our Glass River Media, what's normally our video studio. We've flipped things up today so that Atmosphere and Fabrication Events can build out our backspace into what you've been seeing. And today, Corey and Nathan and I, we are very well lit for a tech room. Usually we'd be back in the back behind a curtain in the dark, so this is pretty exciting for us. Just want to give you kind of a introduction. I said Corey here, she's streaming, so if you guys are watching on YouTube right now and feel like making comments, she's the one who's replying to you. And we've had, I see a robust chat going on here, so I don't know what is being talked about, but Corey is on top of the message and keeping everyone informed. I am switching video right here, so all these different sources I can bring up, and in fact here, let's take a look at, we just have cameras all over the place. We got one back there, so hello, you get another view there. And Nathan over here is doing absolutely everything else. He's running graphics for us and playback machines and doing the audio board. So as Kirk said, all of this is being done pretty much by 4 people, the 3 of us here, and we have Ronan, our camera operator, out in the studio. So this is the kind of thing that can be brought anywhere. We're doing it in our location today. We have done it in theaters. We can do it, I think I heard Kirk say, in closets. If you have an office, if you have a boardroom, if you just want to do it outside in your parking lot, we can shoot anywhere and we can bring all of this anywhere. I don't know if you've watched Kirk and Corey's Twitch channel. They go to conventions and they stream live from the floor. So none of this is constrained by your space. We can go anywhere. I just wanted to tell a quick story a little bit later in the show, so I got the rundown here. Kirk is going to introduce a video about the safety awards, and he's going to introduce it to show off the fact that we can play videos. But before you see that, I kind of wanted to just explain what it is you're going to see. This is a project for the Association of Union Contractors. They care a lot about worker safety, and they actually give out awards for having safe construction sites. And so every year, Nathan and I have gone around the country and we introduce or interview people who run very safe job sites. And the video that we're going to play for you is something that gets played at their awards show. And so when Kirk shows this to us later, what we really want to emphasize is even though it was something that was made for a live event, it was played at a dinner 2 months ago. But in this case, we can take something like that, a very similar project, and stream it as part of a live show. It doesn't have to live just on its own. It can be part of something bigger. And that is what we're going to see in a little bit. You have any more questions for me, Kirk, or would you like to just come on back?
No, just I think that's good.
All right, so here's Kirk.
The power, I mean, not to be overly on the nose about it, but the power of personal connection is why we do galas and why we do events. It's so important to recognize people like the Safety Awards video that we are going to show, again, largely so we can show you the playback ability and the various abilities, but one of the reasons we do galas and award dinners and all of these things is because bringing people together is about growing the community. The reason that social media has become so big is it's made a very, very big world and it's made it very small. It's made it very accessible to people to have relationships. I don't know about you, but I would imagine that your work is not too dissimilar from mine, and I have colleagues and friends that I've never actually met, people that I spend days on the phone with, weeks on the phone with, and they're in Seattle, San Francisco, San Diego, lots of places that start with S. And we have these relationships through email and through correspondence, but I've never met them because social media has made a very large world very small. We have these galas and these events to try to bring people together. But again, to talk about what's going on in the world today, right now we're having to practice some social distancing. We're having to practice some safety, where we're being told in increasingly small numbers. It used to be 250, then 200. Now there are places that are saying that you shouldn't get together in groups larger than 25 just to help curb the spread. But our message has to go on. Some of our clients were doing very important events that represented a huge part of their annual calendar. It represented their fundraiser. It represented their annual awards show. It represented their graduation. It represented things that were big and important to recognize, that we can't just pretend, we can't just put it off. People's lives go on, our schedules go on. And so maintaining these events and maintaining some normalcy, maintaining that human connection is a really important thing. It's really important that we keep our events going in some way. Yes, some things will have to be put off, but for the most part, we can always adapt. We can pivot and we can overcome those things, and we can still have our event. My brain just completely blanked out on that one, Eric. I just completely stopped. It's like it hit the end of the sentence. But so, kind of talking a little bit about the human connection and the importance of, like, Paul told a really cool story of the little girl that just lit up at the Pink Room. Talk about, if you would, that moment for the events. I know that we've talked about it before, that seeing the event and lighting up.
Well, one of my favorite events to do every year is Serpentine University of Maryland. And they raise a significant amount of money for Children's Miracle Network. And it's a lot of pride every year they have their big reveal about how much money they raised that year. And most years it's somewhere between $500,000 up to $1 million, sometimes even more. And it's a lot of effort from a lot of people. These are students who are taking it upon themselves to raise money for other people. That's really meaningful to me. I see educational institutions that, again, they're raising money to complete their missions. That's also really meaningful. But just getting out and socializing. You know, if I'm at a bar mitzvah, I see that one kid who's maybe a little bit nerdy, maybe a little bit uncomfortable socializing.
Every 13-year-old ever?
Yeah, I think a little bit of myself in that. And I see those dancers that come out and bring him into the party, sure. Make him a part of that. That is almost a life-changing experience. You can be a part of this party and you can have a great time.
Right.
Those are some of the best moments for me.
Yeah, that human connection, that seeing someone brought out of their shell. It's a big part of events. I was doing full-time events for several years, and I will say that that's why I kept doing it, was the people showing up, and you could tell they were uncomfortable. They were in their tuxedo, or they were in their clothes that they didn't like, or they were in the shoes that never quite fit right, or everything. But they'd walk in, and their wife or their husband would be on their arm, and they would you'd see that happiness to be there, that excitement to be in the room, and the buzz about it. And modernly, we're withdrawing because of distances. There seems to be less events and more webinars, where you go onto a webinar and it's a person and their camera's looking at just gosh awful light in their face, and they're wearing a headset, much like I'm wearing, sorry. And it doesn't make you feel like you're there. You don't feel that connection. But I think that you could. I think that we could be doing better at doing that connection through a produced event. Paul, do you have what can we do to better the online experience?
I think that any relationship work, especially when it comes to work and social, it has to be a balance. You're balancing keeping up with people through social media, so you know what's going on a regular basis, and that creates a familiarity with them, but it's a distant familiarity. And meeting up and seeing people in person helps bring all that back. You have more conversation. It's now easier to converse with people in person because you walk in knowing a lot more about them. You're not starting from scratch, just, hey, I haven't seen you in 8 years. Have you had any kids? Have you are you still married? Are you enough that you can walk in and I think it actually makes the personal conversations better, but it's important to see people in person. And right now, with the situation we're in, we're kind of having to blend those two worlds and try and have that more personal interaction, but having to do it remotely. And so doing webinars or conferences where you can remotely interact, like you're on your phone now interacting with the guests that are out there.
Sure.
It's not in person, but it's closer. We're talking through the camera to people that are listening, and they're able to respond. So in the situation we're now, trying to blend it. You can't be in person, but you can try and meet them halfway. Absolutely. And I think if you're able to do that, you're making the best of a bad situation. Or if you're doing this a year from now, when we're in better circumstances, it's, again, you're not meeting with them in person, but you're closer to it and you have a better connection to them.
Absolutely. To kind of touch on that, so I know that Corey has been on doing the chat, and I wanted to see if there was any questions that had come across that come through the chat that we could answer. Anyone engaging online that had any questions, comments, would like us to address anything. You have 3 people here that you can ask. We can address anything, our limitations, our abilities. I'd like to open up the floor for a few minutes for kind of a Q&A as we just sort of see if there's anything that we can do for our live audience that is engaging online. So, does Glass River Media do the filming and added name and titles on the screen, or is it strictly the staging? All of the above. There's really no limitations. So all of the graphics you're seeing, the video you're going to see, all of the cameras and placements, that is us. All of the draping and the decor was fabrication, and all of the lighting, we're using none of our own lighting here. This is all lit by Atmosphere. Looking for a solution that allows remote video in from other locations so that partners in other cities can be integrated into the show. For example, for example, to do their own presentations. Any thoughts? So yes, what we're actually helping a company, we're helping a university down in Florida do that this weekend, where they were set to have a large, their behind the scenes, their new student tour was this weekend that they had to cancel, which was a pretty big deal for them. So they had to figure out a way that they could incorporate their new student, not orientation, their new student tour, but remotely. And so what they're doing is setting up cameras, much like we have here, in various places around campus. And they're even doing an alumni panel of people from around the country that couldn't be there personally, and all through Zoom meeting, and doing breakout rooms through Zoom, as well as doing various locations so that they can kind of pass the baton around campus virtually and say, here we are in this lab, XYZ, here we are on this stage, XYZ, and they're going to bounce the baton around. And then when they go to the alumni webinar or the alumni panel, they're going to be cutting to a virtual panel all through Zoom meeting, allowing a relatively complex behind the scenes tour that was set to host anywhere between 300 and 400 prospective and would be students. And now it's going to allow all of them to have, as close as they can, a situation where they can see all the labs and still have that time with the teachers and still see all the things that they were going to, including the panel with the alumni. But instead of walking around campus, they're going to be doing it all virtually, to include small breakout rooms with 4 to 6 people and getting to meet other prospective students, all through a Zoom platform that we've helped them set up. Is that all my questions? Hold on. I don't want my conference to stream on YouTube. I want to monitor who is coming to my event. Where are you able to stream to? Anywhere with an internet connection. We can do this to Facebook, which doesn't really help that question. We can do it to YouTube. But YouTube, we have a public option, which is what we're doing today. We can also do it with a YouTube unlisted option where you have to have the link. If we do it through Zoom meeting, you can do it by invitation only, where you have to have a password, or we can even do it through Vimeo or other services where you have to have a password and different accreditations. There are even secure options where if you are needing a confidential or secure server, those are options as well. It all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And then lastly, how quickly can an event be put together? Well, that greatly depends on the event. If you already had an event planned and you had to cancel the audience but wanted to keep it going, if the event is already planned, we could be there tomorrow. There's us plugging in and doing our section of this is not very difficult. We can show up with our 4 cameras, 3 cameras, 2 cameras, whatever you need, and our small crew, and we can do it in relatively easy fashion. If you're starting from the ground up, it's as complicated as you want to make it. If we're doing a few people in a boardroom, this we decided to do on Sunday. It took us 3 days to kind of put together kind of the logistics of it. Whereas if you wanted to do something simpler, more complicated, it really just depends. But if really your event was already set up and you're just wanting to put it online, we can be there tomorrow. And that seems to be all of the questions for now. Did you guys have any? Those seem to all be kind of media questions.
Well, I think with the question about how quickly can we set it up, a lot of that depends on what our schedule is and what you're asking for. If, for instance, right now, the event industry is essentially shut down and there's nothing going on, and if you're looking for something we have in stock, 2-3 hours. If we
faster
have,
than your pizza.
Yeah, if we have somebody in the warehouse and we have limitations, we work within them. So if you tell us what you want, we tell you what we can do within that time frame. Basically, have a quick conversation, and if it's coming off the shelf, it can be packed up and run right out to you. If you're looking for custom work, it really depends on what you want and what the timetable and availability is. If you call us typically on a Thursday in March when we have 8 galas going on in one night, you may not get what you want the same day. It may be a little bit longer, but if it's a day that we're available, we have crew, we just pack it up and go. Really, the limitation is how fast we can get it together.
Absolutely. Same question as far as how fast you can rally an event.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'd say this particular moment, depending on the complexity, anywhere from a few hours to 24 hours.
Yeah. Now, right now, the event industry is slow at the moment, so
yeah.
there's some options. Yeah.
You know, as you were talking about the university, I couldn't help but to think to myself, granted, they moved to an online format because, what's going on in the world right now, But does it also open up new opportunities? You know, if there was
Absolutely.
a student that was considering this university in Florida that's up here, that's quite a drive.
Yep.
Could they now be taking that tour? Could they get more people on that tour and hence more interest in their university than they might have from the in-person tour they're originally going to plan?
Absolutely. I mean, there's something to be said for truly, I mean, anyone who's ever watched a movie and then gone to the real place and goes, it looks nothing like that. There's something to be said for the physical experience. But yes, what about, someone up here, we're a 12-hour drive. What about someone in Seattle that was thinking about going to this school in Florida? It's not that they don't want to do the real tour or the in-person tour. It's that really might not be feasible financially or just logistically. These opportunities of taking things, these large conventions, even before this current crisis, we'll call it, we were starting to do this, where we were going to events that already had 50 to 500 people, and then we're streaming it and doing live moderation to another 500 people, so that they had more opportunities to reach their audience. We did get one more question. That it said, we have paid events that are now having to postpone. Is there any way to control access to only those who have paid for the event? And that's absolutely. If we go through one of our systems that is password protected, you could provide the password only to those that paid. You could do individual passwords. There are definitely ways of limiting to those. GoToWebinar is an option. There are several different platforms that allow us to restrict access to only individuals that are allowed to be in them. Okay, so I'm going to give her a second to come out, but another one that we wanted to have Corey come out and also talk to us and kind of tell a story about the power of events and the power of that connection. And give her a sec. And please, if anyone has any more questions, please just keep them coming, and we will answer them as we can. And if we can, yep.
If we have any questions, I'm the one moderating them, so I'm out here now, so it'll have to wait a second.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. So I just wanted to come out and tell a little story, just kind of about, in these crazy times that we just need to be aware of the communities that we're all a part of. Most recently, it's the small things that count. I know a lot of friends have been just kind of reaching out and just sharing stories about how we're all helping each other come together. There's a friend of mine who has kind of adopted several. She's an RN, and so she has some patients who were some elderly couples that she now has adopted, as she says. And so she's the one. She's going to grocery stores. She's going out for them to get the supplies that they need. And then people are also contacting her about, like Kmart has this. You should go there, and giving her like insider tips of where she can find the different things that these elderly couples need, and that she's going out to get. Also on Facebook, of all places, because you never know where people might reach out. One friend across the country reached out and saying, "Hey, does anybody are any of my friends on Patreon, of all places? I have some small business owners that need some help. They're trying to go digital." And then on my side of the country, I have several contacts who are on Patreon because they do cosplay, of all things, and they've been on Patreon for years. And so I was able to connect the two so that my cosplayer friend on the East Coast can help these small business owners on the West Coast. And we just need to all make sure that, even though it's crazy and we're doing our part we're all in this together, we're all a community. Your event can still happen. Your community can still come together. We just need to find creative, fun ways to do that. And that's kind of what we're trying to show that we can do, is that you can still have your community, you can still have your event, but it's just a little bit different right now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Corey.
Thanks.
So as Jeff kind of teased earlier, we want to kind of show the breadth of things that we can do, and that there are really no limitations other than imagination. Today, we have had a panel discussion. We've had multiple, different camera angles and different camera places. We've set an old garage space into this kind of beautiful set. We also want to show that you can still show your videos and your produced your produced elements. So we're going to be using this one that Jeff teased earlier about the safety awards that we did for ZISA. So we're going to roll that, and you can just kind of see another product that we can incorporate into your live event.
Safety it's a way of life.
Well, RMF Neuter, they have a safety culture and a relationship with each individual employee. That's something that you look for when you go out when you want a job.
The culture is you got to go home safe every day. You live it, you breathe it, it's second nature. You don't even have to think about it.
If you don't have safety, you might as well just forget what you're doing here because you take it home with you too.
So the Northwest Ohio building trades really support RMF in all of our aspects of safety.
They work hand in hand with us on a daily basis to make sure that the employees are happy, they are safe, and they do qualified work.
We've had a pretty incredible safety record in the shop and out at BP.
And we just have just world-class, I think, craftsmen and great salaried folks.
I adore any of the crafts workers that come through here because these are the guys and gals that are executing these amazing feats like at BP Refinery.
To get the record injury-free man hours, it is skilled pre-planning.
2.3 million man hours that's something else.
So at BP Husky, with our full-time presence, we've been out there for about 10 years. The full-time people that we've got on site are ingrained in the culture of safety for BP and for us.
Think of that. You have how many people every day going through the gates of this refinery, and anywhere from slips, trips, and falls. The culture that we created through BP Husky and RMF Neuter has just been phenomenal.
We're out close to Lake Erie, extreme heat, extreme cold. We get both ends of the spectrum. And then our work in general is, heavy industrial work is just dangerous by nature.
You're working with hundreds of people in small spaces. And just to try to keep the timelines that the client requires is one of our biggest challenges, and it's so fantastic when you can meet those goals.
A lot of times people say you have the right to stop work. Our general manager rephrased it and said you have the responsibility to stop work.
It's not just a right or your authority, it's really an obligation, and I think our people understand that.
Yeah, as a foreman, having everybody take on that responsibility of safety is a good thing.
It does take a lot of courage to go up to someone that you don't know and tell them you see something wrong. If you see something and you're not sure if it's right or wrong, just stop the people working and ask them. Say, hey, I think something might be wrong here, and have that conversation, have the courage to talk to them.
BP has always been very proactive. They love to plan ahead. That's really wonderful for me as a safety person because it gives me the opportunity to explore everything in detail and then be ready for it when it comes.
That site in particular, they really practice what they preach, and that comes from both sides, from the owner and the contractor. I think we really view safety there as a partnership.
BP Husky is our biggest customer, so it does a tremendous amount of work with the building trades, and RMF is crucial to our industry to do the work out there. They've been experts out there. Safety, quality, productivity, then knock it out of the park every time.
So one of the things that I wanted to tag on to what Corey had been saying is that this is a time of bringing together. Human connection is important, but it's also important to bring together the big companies, the huge box stores, and the big places. They're going to be fine, but a lot of your small businesses, which includes a lot of the event companies, your small places, your favorite mom and pop shop, they have an overhead and not usually the ability to weather that. So events specifically and gatherings specifically are shutting down left and right, and it's really important that we don't kind of panic at this time and that we find ways to support it, not just because that human connection is important and not just because that event is important, but because if we don't find a way to support each other through this, there's a lot of people that really might not be able to make it through just the slowing of the economy and we need to really reach out and make sure that we're supporting each other and supporting those that are being really, really affected by this.
Yeah. And I think with events that you have coming up that are in those time periods where we really don't know what's going to be happening into May and June, is call your vendors, talk to them, make a backup plan, but you don't necessarily need to cancel yet. If everybody cancels and before we see how this is all going to play out, then you're talking about companies in our industry going without any income for March, April, May, June, possibly July. There are very few companies out there that can survive with no income for 5 or 6 months. And so waiting to see how this plays out is going to be key, and reaching out to those venues and vendors and coming up with a backup plan. So I'm not saying don't prepare for the worst, but also don't give up yet. And prepare for both options, and try and work with them in order to make sure that you can still do your event. Because if you are postponing it, you want to make sure that that venue is still open. You want to make sure that those vendors that you wanted to use are still in business, so that you can pull off your event down the line. And working together to come up with a solution that keeps everybody in this and around is going to be key getting as we go farther on.
Absolutely. Eric?
Well, the thought that keeps occurring to me as we're talking about moving events from a live perspective to a, well, I guess it's still live, but an online perspective.
Right.
Well, there's really two thoughts that occur to me. The one is that just like we do in in-person events, in an online style event, every decision should be intentional.
Sure.
You know, the chairs didn't just happen to be here today. Fabrication Events, and Paul brought them. We made a decision. This is the chair that would look great today. Same with the lighting. Same with everything else we see. It was a decision. And as we move into streaming events, a lot of people maybe have seen streaming events in the past that, you know, it's someone in a corporate conference room, and those are great for certain types of events, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be a produced and designed and intentional event. And the second component is, again, you sort of alluded to it earlier, we don't have to choose between an in-person and online event. And I think as the industry changes over the next several months, we're going to see a desire to have both components.
Right.
And we can continue doing that and make this a part of what we do going forward.
Well, and because I think that there's going to be people that are comfortable before other people. There's going to be a first wave and a second wave and a third wave. And,
yeah.
And there will be people, the slow adopters, where they're having an online component or the ability to come without the crowd will, I think, is an ability that we have now that is going to be a tool in the toolkit of many event planners, or should be. So the other thing that we'll be able to do, you know, as we talked about with the university in Florida, is we don't always all have to be in the same place. We can have small groups spread out. We can have interviews and guests. We can have keynotes from people that aren't necessarily local or nearby. We're going to be in just a few minutes. We're still waiting now, but we're in just a few minutes. We're going to be having a guest come in and be able to Zoom in conference and have a conversation with us to show that live capability and that ability for that two-way engagement, even though we're in disparate locations. And we'll be able to see and have those two-way conversations, just like you're seeing more and more on podcasts and as we've seen on the news for years. Not all the often your new the interview isn't local. They're from a studio elsewhere, and that is a technology that is now accessible enough that we don't need a satellite truck. We can do it with a Wi-Fi connection, and so we're going to be able to have these locations, these interviews from multiple locations. So today I'm being joined by Lori Carpenter. She is the coach and founder of What If Coaching. And she wanted to come on today and talk to us a little bit about her coaching practice and that power of that human connection. Lori, are you there?
Hi, Kirk. So nice to join you today.
Hey, nice to see you as well. So I just wanted to, I know that you have kind of an interesting path that led you into to coaching, and I wanted to hear a little bit about that.
I do. I actually started my career in communication, both for local government and for corporations. But I just didn't enjoy working in an office. I really enjoyed connecting with people, and so I started looking. And then my brothers and I were all diagnosed with ADHD as adults. We were close to our 30s when we got diagnosed. And so that's been an interest and a passion of mine, is researching ADHD for best practices for adults learning to adjust to life. And so those two things, my lack of love of corporate work and my interest in ADHD, have combined into a practice founded around helping parents relate to their children with ADHD, helping adults adapt to having a new diagnosis of any kind of mental health, and then just generally helping families grow closer together.
That's awesome. And so, we were talking, we've talked a little bit about this as throughout the time, and you've talked about, the best way of handling and coping those things is through having a plan, and kind of talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So the way coaching works, coaching is typically remote even during healthy times. We tend to meet with our clients over the phone. It just allows for a lot more flexibility in scheduling with everybody's busy lives. And when I first heard that, I thought people were crazy. I was like, how are you going to be able to connect via the phone? How are you going to, get a rapport with somebody? But it is what I've learned as I've coached is that coaching communication is really about your intent. Eric was talking a moment ago about intentionality in your design. You have to have intentionality with your program as well. And it's about intent, not proximity.
I really like that. It's about intent, not proximity. And yeah, exactly like Eric was saying about making sure that you made the correct choices and that you can still have that connection.
In keeping with that theme, I've actually brought an example of an exercise that I use every morning and something that I share with my clients to share with your audience, if you'd like.
Not at all.
So there is a great power in making a decision, and there's an even bigger power in actually declaring that decision, even if it's just to yourself. And so what I do is every morning I declare my intent for the day. I set an intention. And the way you do that is this. When you wake up, this takes about 10 minutes, and you want to do it as close to waking up as possible. And when you wake up, you want to just take a minute and ask yourself, hey, how's it going? What you thinking about? Kind of investigate what's still running over that's left over from yesterday. What's that thing that's just kind of, buzzing in the back of your head, taking your mind off what you need to do. And once you've identified that thing, you're going to ask yourself, check in with your body. How are you feeling? Are your hands tense? Does your back ache? Do you feel tired even though you just woke up? You're just going to list and name each of those sensations that you can feel throughout your body. Then you're going to think about your emotions, your feelings. How do you feel about it? Are you mad, disappointed, strangely excited? Don't judge. Just list them, just get them out. And you want to make sure you're shaking that bag till you get the last one out. Then you're going to focus on your thoughts. What are you thinking? What are you thinking about whatever situation? Thinking about you in whatever situation you're in. And especially you want to focus here on negative talk. If you call yourself names, I've been known to call myself a lazy dumb jerk or something else delightfully that you would never say to another person.
Sure.
Go ahead and say that. Get it out. We're shaking it out here. And once you've gotten all of that out, the emotions, the physical, the thoughts, you're going to take a deep breath and you're going to accept it. And you're going to accept that you're going to put that down for right now. Maybe you'll come back to it. Maybe you don't need to. For right now, you're going to put it down and you're going to focus on the day ahead. And then here's the really fun part. Now you're going to just close your eyes for a minute and imagine the day ahead. Picture what you've got coming up. Who are you going to see? What are you going to do? What places are you going to visit? Let pictures of those just fill your mind and really visualize your day. And then gather them up, and you're going to start squeezing them smaller and smaller and smaller until they're about the size of a marble that fits in your hand. Take a look at it. That marble's going to have a color. Maybe it has a texture. It's got a weight. That marble is your day. So it's a way of visualizing the day that you have coming up. You know that all that you were just looking at is contained in that marble.
That's really interesting. And I mean, especially now that people have a day that doesn't necessarily look like the days that they used to have, or that there are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I actually sometimes use this in the middle of the day if I have a big change coming up, if I'm switching gears dramatically. And then the last thing you do with that marble is you decide, how am I going to relate to today? What is my intention for today? Am I going to relate to this day with joy? Am I going to relate to this day as a leader? Am I going to relate to this day with love? And you're going to pick one word that's how you're going to approach today. And whenever you get stuck or you find yourself just kind of meandering through the day, maybe not having much of an aim, you can go back to that one word and just remind yourself you want to react from that place. And it just kind of gives you something to hold on to when your schedule's not as steady.
I really like that. Thank you so much for kind of joining us. This is Lori with What If Coaching. Do you have a website or an email people can contact you with if they had more questions?
Absolutely. You can reach me at findwhatif@gmail.com, or you can visit we are on Facebook, and you can visit my website at discoverwhatif.com.
Awesome.
Please reach out if you'd like to learn more about coaching. I'm also currently offering complimentary sample sessions. So if you'd like to try out coaching for yourself, feel free to shoot me an email and we'll get something scheduled.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Lori.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Kirk.
Absolutely. So we want to try to keep this to the hour that we talked about, and we're coming up on that. But I want to just take a minute to just kind of let each of us sort of, what is the takeaway from today, Eric?
I think the takeaway is that things are changing, but they're always changing, and we can change with it, and we can create designed and produced events as part of that change.
Awesome. Paul?
I think the big takeaway message from me is be conscious and forward thinking in what message you want to deliver, what the look is that you want to present to people, whether it's in live events or in events such as these, and don't just go at it and wing it, because it may come across in a way that downplays everything that you're presenting.
Branding matters.
Yeah, it's branding and just being aware of it. It's easy just to pull out an iPhone and set it down in front of you and go and talk, but be conscious of what image that presents to everybody that's watching you. If you're trying to do a business presentation, you want to look professional. You want to look put together, and you want to get across the message that you want. You can't just throw all that out the window when it comes to the fact that it's on the internet. Present yourself the way you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, there is, whether it is Atmosphere, Fabrication, Glass River Media, there is an event company near you that is able to help save what you are doing. Don't be afraid of what's going on in the world. You have to keep your message going. You have to keep that human connection going. You have to keep building your audience and your, because we can't just stop. The only thing constant is change, kind of like Eric was saying. Change is always happening, and so we have to pivot with that. This too shall pass, and it might not be different on the other side. It might not be the same on the other side. So if you have any questions, give us a call, any of us. And we'd love to help you figure out how we can save your event, spread your message through these times. Thank you so much for spending the last hour with us. If you have any questions, please reach out to Eric H at Atmosphere Lighting, or Paul. Is there an email address?
Paul at fabricationevents.com.
Paul at fabricationevents.com, or myself, Kirk at Glass River Media. We'd love to answer any questions or set you on the path to success through this interesting time. I'm going to kick off with kind of our reel of random things that we have done, so you can take a look at some of the other things that we offer. But thank you so much for joining us, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help.